Austin hit me up from Orlando, and he just put it out there. He said, is Tyler Buckner going to start for Bama? Is this guaranteed? No, it is not guaranteed. Somehow, Alabama ended up being the only team out there that came out of spring with a muddier quarterback picture than they had going into spring, which never happens. So that's a rarity to say the least, especially at Alabama. I was talking to a coordinator last week who's not coaching in Alabama or anything like that, just kind of an observer of the program. And he said, can you believe they found themselves in that desperate a position? And I said, good question. No, I cannot. And I still can't. I can't believe they were in that position. But that position they were in, consider this. So they bring a quarterback in post-spring from the portal. Tyler Buckner was at Notre Dame. His coordinator's at Alabama. He's now at Alabama, so we remember all that. That's how that shook out. Then no one transferred. That's the most hidden and possibly telltale mind-blowing sign, is you had a guy come in after you got two more guys who were just battling it out through spring. So normally, when you got two guys battling through spring and then spring ends and then they bring another guy in, that's usually an indication that, well, neither one of you are going to be the guy. We went and got the guy. Normally, that's what that indicates. That is not the situation at Alabama. I don't think it's the situation there. And obviously, Jalen Milroe and Ty Simpson didn't either, because neither of them transferred. So you got three dudes firmly convinced they're about to win the job. Notice I said three. Therein lies the potential conundrum. You don't split first-team reps three ways very far, period, especially in the fall. You do not split first-team reps very deep into the fall three ways. Two ways? Yeah. Three ways, not so much. So we got to get this sorted out pretty quick. They're 123rd in offensive production returning this year at Alabama. So this is not some of those years where it looked like you could probably take Jesse if you firmed up, the structural integrity of his shoulder a little bit, and I could have dropped him down there with those receivers and backs and offensive line, and Jesse could have been middle of the pack in terms of SEC quarterback production. This is not one of those years, but I also don't think it's going to be one of those teams. So I'm going to say to you again what I said when this happened. Tyler Buckner, welcome to Tuscaloosa. I do not think this makes him the automatic starter at quarterback there, although I do agree there's a reason they brought him in. The second thing I'll say is I still think they can win with Simpson. I still think they can win with Milroe, because I think I know what style of team that Nick Saban wants to have this year and has the pieces to have this year. And it doesn't look exactly like the 2018 or 2019 or maybe even 2020 team. I don't think it looks like that. I don't think it needs to look like that. You're going to see a lot of talk about, well, can this quarterback, whoever it is, can he fill the shoes, fill the void left by Bryce Young? Let me spoil that for you. No, they don't have Bryce Young there. They don't have anyone who could tote Bryce Young's jock there. They probably don't need to, because I am old enough to remember us going to Atlanta a couple of years ago, and Bryce Young takes the field against Georgia and ends up beating them in the SEC championship game with no run game. You got Brian Robinson, who's hobbled, and no one behind him. And one of the talking points going into the game is Alabama's just going to have to win without a running game. And we were so taken aback because we had never said that before. That's not ever going to be the case with this team this year. Quite the opposite. I think it would probably be a mild to moderate surprise if any of these quarterbacks end up taking over multiple games. And the reason I say that is because stylistically it's not what they'll need this year. They've got a good enough road grading offensive line. They should have tons of options for high-level running back play. They should be okay at receiver. They've got a secondary that I don't think will get torched regularly, causing them to need to score 38 or more per game. I don't think that's the kind of Alabama team you're going to see. But there's also something else that I think we'll talk about a little bit more as the season approaches. And it's how a lot of people are assuming that Buckner coming in after spring is going to have a negative effect because it tells both of your current quarterbacks, well, you're not good enough. Then if Buckner's not good enough to win the job, you may have toxified an environment, and then you're stuck with no quarterbacks. Well, if you got three quarterbacks, you got none. Sometimes that's true. Sometimes that's not. Yeah, okay, all that could happen. Let me present an alternative scenario for you. You ever driven with a full tank before? When you've got a full tank of gas, you don't care how much you gun the engine. You don't really care because you're not looking to be economical with your fuel gauge because you're not in danger of running out. But I will never forget, the first time I went to Phoenix, I didn't actually go to Phoenix. I went to San Diego and drove across the desert to Phoenix. And the thing about that, for those of you who have made that drive before, is it's beautiful, and you can drive like 130 miles an hour because there is nothing out there, including gas stations. So I crossed the California-Arizona line, and I got like a quarter of a tank. I figured I'll be cool. Then I realized quickly the situation at hand. There's not one on every corner. And all of a sudden, you're not going 110 anymore. You're kind of trying to pull up that meter in the car. All right, what puts me in the sweet spot? What conserves the most fuel? Why? You got to count every drop because you can't take it for granted that you're going to get somewhere no matter how you drive. Bama always operates on a full tank. They're always used to being so much more talented than everyone. They're always used to having a Heisman caliber quarterback and a bunch of racehorses at receiver that it really doesn't matter. They don't have to be fully ratcheted up. They don't have to thread the needle every week. Doesn't feel like that right now, does it? Now, in reality, they're going to out-talent most everyone they play still. Even if you consider them down or vulnerable, they've got studs everywhere. Jesse, what'd you tell me? They have half a dozen former five-star players just at the edge position. They are ridiculously loaded. They just brought in the best recruiting class I think they've ever brought in. They got them all over the place, just not at quarterback. Well, what that can do to a team, and I'm sure Nick Saban's gunning for this, is it can convince them their tank's a lot closer to E than it really is. And if you get an Alabama team that's convinced it's running on empty, Jackson Brown made a great song out of it. Alabama could make a great season out of it. That team right there can win a national championship this year. Don't kid yourself. There is no program out there that is complete. There's no program out there that has this insurmountable task because they've got a stud quarterback and a dominant defense. Caleb Williams may fit the first part of that description. USC's not shutting you out defensively. You don't even know who Ohio State's starting. Carson Beck's never started a game for Georgia. Does the Michigan roster that's failed to win a playoff game really intimidate you if you're Alabama? LSU beat you down there last year. And when's the last time that folks started regularly beating you 2 times in a row? No. If he, Nick Saban, convinces them that they're running on quarter of a tank, eighth of a tank, when in reality we still know they're much closer to F than E because of this quarterback situation, there could be a reverse effect on that team than the one the rest of the country is expecting. And I'm sure for that reason, Nick Saban will be more than happy to field questions about how vulnerable they are and how much question there still is at quarterback, because there is. It's just that he may be able to win regardless of who they start back there.